Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the upper tier, and this is the Monday mashup. Joining me, as always, the OGs, our resident referee, Mark. How are we, Mark?
How's it going, lads? Thanks for having me on. You are looking great.
A new jersey every week. Also joining me, my partner on these podcasts, as always, the Dazzler himself, Darren. How are we, Darren?
All good, Niall. All good, my friend. Good to see you, Marky.
Good to see you, lads. Niall is very happy today because Liverpool weren't beaten the weekend. Go ahead.
And we're not going to be beaten next weekend either, by the sounds of things, so it's all good. Here, 2
Happy
weekends on the
days.
trot without losing.
And that brings it into the international break, so he's could go a month unbeaten.
What I did realise today, though, is I'm going to have to get on to Darren, and me and Darren are going to have to put together a plan for our fantasy football. Because some key matches and have been called off. We'll go through them in a little bit. Obviously,
don't forget that gives you options in the weeks to come when they do double game weeks. That's when you can go triple captain on it and really, do well.
Yeah. We are playing catch up, though. We have to be careful. We can't let these lads too far ahead.
Absolutely.
Just to let you know, tonight's show, we're going to be taking a look at obviously previewing the European football. Some of the matches have made it through and some haven't. Unknown, I think it is on and says, "Hi, how are you, my friend? Good to have you on board." Stevie was on earlier as well. Unsubbing. Oh, okay. Fair enough. Evening, guys. Enjoy the show and smash the likes from Stevie Statman Stubbs. Check out his channel.
I thought it said unsubbing, no?
No, it says unsubbing. Then it says
just kidding. Just kidding.
Just kidding, and that's all right. I was lying. Fair enough. Nice one. Just to let you know, we'll be previewing all the European action. We're also going to be talking.
Where's the block button?
As in a cavity block.
No, as in
get for our kitchen there, Niall.
But we'll be previewing, as I said, the European action. We'll also be taking a look at the situation with the Premier League and the impact that the Queen's passing has had on it and stuff like that. We'll also, Darren, you wanted to talk about is it 5 or 6 United players where United have yet to exercise their option for the extra year.
Well, we have a little bit of time, but yeah, I sent you on a little list, I think, didn't we?
And we're also going to take a look at Thomas Tuchel's statement that he released yesterday, and we're also going to be looking at the Premier League games, what has survived and what hasn't, give you a breakdown of what you can look forward to next weekend, and also 2 interesting signings today outside of the transfer window. We'll get into them. One, a goalkeeper that I'm not too upset to see the back of. And the other one, I wish we had played Wolves last weekend before this happened. But they're the 2 anyway. But we'll talk about them and we'll get into them as well. So we will start, first of all, just to keep you updated tonight. It's half-time at the moment. Almeria 0, Osasuna 1. And Empoli 1, Roma 1. The goals from Paulo Dybala for Roma, and Empoli equalising Bandelli with the equaliser. So we'll keep you updated on those games as well, as we struggle to find football.
Well, lads, I found some on Saturday night. I was watching Shell's women's team against P-Mount on TG Caher.
I watched a little bit of that, Marky.
Did you? It was good, wasn't it?
It was all right. I tell you what, do you know who did impress me? P-Mount goalkeeper made a couple of top saves.
Yeah, she's very good. And Shelbourne's Abby Larkin, she's from Ringsend. She's a really good player. She started, got her debut for the Irish women's team in Turkey there about 2 months ago. My dad used to play football with her dad. That's how I know her. And I left her under 11s for Cambridge boys, so she's a cracking player. Plays up top for Shell, so keep an eye out for her in the future.
Very good. Excellent. I had a little bit of luck over the weekend. I actually got a bet up on Saturday, and I don't look at it, but I'll give you a laugh on this one because I had Barcelona -2, I think it was, and I had Atletico -1 in a double. Get me 40 quid back, and then good old Freiburg yesterday let me down for a nice bet. I even had Shamrock Rovers in the bet -2. They were all flying and going well for me. Lazio, the whole lot and all, and then Freiburg let me down. I thought they would have put in a better shift for the chance to go top of the Bundesliga, but no.
Well, there you go, coach. You'll have to do a European beat the bookie as well. You'll have a European betting.
Here's the story. I think Barcelona were 2 2-1 up, I think it was. Was it 2-1 or 2-0 or something like that? With there was like about 4 or 5 minutes ago, and we seen what happened with the fan who took sick, and they had to trade him. So I was out, I didn't see this. All I had on was the game had been interrupted, and I was going, some streaker or something must have ran onto the pitch for a couple of minutes. So I thought the bet was down. So I went on to look at the Atletico game. And lo and behold, I checked the Barcelona game and it was like 4-0 or 4-1 or something. I was going, happy days, the bet is still on again. So it was a little bit of a surprise there. So took the winnings and threw it back on Sunday. Silly me, no joy. Freiburg let me down. Right, let's get into this. Let's get into these European games. So we start off tomorrow night. Rangers versus Napoli has been pushed to Wednesday. But we start off tomorrow night. We have Liverpool versus Ajax. Absolutely huge game for Liverpool. Probably, I would say, a must win. You have to win your games at home. Mark, what you thinking on this one?
It's going to be a really tough one for you. Did I read Robbo's out with an knee injury as well, is he?
Yeah.
He hasn't really shown up this season. Going on your form against Napoli last week, I think that's the worst defensive display I've ever seen from a player, Gomez, in the last few years. And don't forget, I've been watching Harry Maguire for the last 2.5, 3 years, so that says it all.
Tread carefully now. Tread carefully.
Listen, no, but in fairness, I'm not just slagging because your hair goes, but I think Ajax are going to come away with a win. Genuinely.
Well, if you do think that, they're 6-1 on the betting.
Yeah,
so it might be worth throwing a few bob on. Darren, what you thinking on this one?
Listen, I think it'll be tough because obviously Ajax, they're a good footballing team. Did a good win at the weekend again. But I think at home, under the lights at Anfield, the music playing in the background, I think it's very, very hard to back against Liverpool at Anfield in the Champions League. I really, really do. Now, again, I think Ajax will make it difficult. They'll probably get in the score sheet, but I'd imagine Liverpool and both to score would be enough to get you a nice little few pound there.
Okay, I'll take that if that's what happens. I had predicted a 3-2 to Liverpool because I was looking, Ajax are free scoring at the moment. I think I looked at it there. We put the preview up there yesterday for the Ajax game, and when I looked at Ajax's team, they already have 4 players in the team in excess of 4 goals this season after 6 games. And I think Bergwijn has 8 already this season. So they're absolutely banging in the goals at the moment. And they're not giving up much either. 21 goals so far in 6 games and only 3 conceded. The post-Ten Hag era ain't going too bad considering the players they lost. But Darren, you had already made the point during the transfer window they brought in a few nice players as well.
Brought in a couple of nice players as well. That's right.
Come here. Absolutely. Niall, do you see Jota starting at all tomorrow? Or what way do you think he'll do it?
I went on a mad one for the preview, mainly to generate debate where I've been calling for maybe a change of formation. That's not like you. Well, it is because like I would have been generally a staunch 4-3-3, but I think with the 4-3-3 system at the moment, if Núñez is in there, I think what's happening is they're kind of getting crowded up front or something like that, where there just doesn't seem to be enough space to operate, and you have the lads running in from both sides, going into the space that he occupies. And they just seem to be all on top of each other. There doesn't seem to be any kind of structure or flow to it or stuff like that. So I went with a different idea. If you check out the preview, I went with 3 at the back, 5 in midfield, and 2 up front, to open up that bit of space, but also to maybe bring a bit more definition to Trent Alexander-Arnold's role in the match. And I thought that might work a little bit better. Now, I don't expect him to do that.
Should be selling fucking programs.
Yeah, but that's your view. My view is very different. Speaking of programs, I got the Newcastle one today off a friend of the show, and Trent's on the front of it, which didn't make me feel any better either. But yeah, so I kind of went with something different with a 3-5-2, and I didn't have Jota starting. I had Diaz up front. I think he has to maintain his place. I think he's been the one sort of shining light this season above everyone else. And I think we have to play Núñez. So I took Salah out of the team. which is against my own better judgment. And I have Gomez back in the team, but on the right hand side, because he's more of a right back than a central defender, to be honest. So I had kind of Van Dijk, Matip, and Gomez at the back as the three.
He's
and
more of a shy back than a centre defender.
Well,
I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to say anything.
He had a bad day at the office against Napoli. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think that's a reflection of Joe Gomez, the player. So we shall see. He does tend to, at times, he can
Has he had lots of good days?
He has had lots of good days, actually. If you remember the first you're wrong. He's had lots of good days. He formed a very good partnership with. No, not recently, but remember he's been out with an injury and stuff. He had a bad knee injury and stuff.
Back months, man. He's got to be getting over that at this stage. Like, come on.
Listen, the few games I did see him play well were when there was no crowd. How long ago was that? You know, when they were all being played.
He had originally formed a very good partnership with Virgil van Dijk, in fairness, but he is a right back where they use him as a sort of versatile player as a centre back as well. I think he's better as a right back. I think he sort of doesn't give you as much going forward as Trent does, but certainly gives you a lot more.
Delivery's not as good though, is it?
No, that's what I mean. But that's just the way it is. But I don't think.
Do you know? I think
last week is a tough one, Darren, because everyone was shit.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I mean?
But it seems like a lot of the time that there's bad games and you guys ship a couple of goals, Gomez is involved. That's the way I would say it as an outsider. Like if you were coming to Old Trafford and you know you'd Gomez in the team, I think happy days, we're in a chance here. But the one thing I will say is, certain players fit certain systems, and I think maybe Gomez isn't good enough to play in a back four as a centre back. But I think if he went to a 3 at the back with wing backs, I think as a right-sided centre back, he would be a lot better.
Which is what I had proposed.
Yeah, but you know Klopp's not going to play that.
No, he's not, and I don't expect him to either. But I was really opening it up for debate for the people that like tuning in and stuff like that. You know, Del Boy is in the comments. What's the bleeding story, boys? How are you, Del Boy?
Go on, the Del Boy.
I see your game on Thursday has been postponed, but you're getting your game at the weekend. I think they're away to Brentford. Am I right?
Brentford, yeah.
Away to Brentford, yes. The way to Brentford's going ahead.
Oh, we know how tough that game can be. Please hand our arses to them, Brentford. Come on, get in there.
And come here, I have a few questions about that later because that game's in London with 2 London teams. And listen, we'll go.
Yeah, no, Marky, I explained it in the WhatsApp group earlier because Dean, I think, and Ian also had the same question. Now, whether we agree with it or not is another, but we'll go through it again later anyway. Yeah. David's in as well. David, welcome to the show tonight. Evening, gents. Gomez seems to have poor games playing with Van Dijk, which seems bizarre. I think Van Dijk is having poor games at the moment, so it's it's hard to put a finger on it at the moment.
I think everyone is playing Bar Diaz, aren't they?
Bar Diaz, and I suppose Alisson is doing all right, and the boy Harvey has been doing all right, but the other night against Napoli he just looked absolutely shattered.
Do you know the one thing I'll say, and I've noticed this quite a bit, and I know you've talked about an overcrowding up front. I find the opposite. I find like Liverpool have gone from playing, let's say, Salah, Mane and Firmino, right? Where the central striker wasn't necessarily the goal scorer, and he was there to facilitate the 2 wide players. Yeah. Whereas now you've gone to someone like Nunez, who is absolutely the focal point, and your 2 wingers now have to spend all of their time trying to get service into the box for this guy so he can get goals. So you've actually changed the style of playing massively. And, instead of the likes of Salah and Mane tucking in and even ghosting into that space, because when Firmino played, he would drop off into that 10 role, which would leave space in behind, and Mane would invariably tuck in from the left hand side and he'd get involved in headers, or he'd be one-on-one with guys playing on the shoulder. That's not happening anymore because you've got that target man. Diaz and Salah are, when they get the ball, the first instinct for the lads is to look up and see if they can bring Nunez into the game. So this is probably going to take a little while, for the system to kind of start to work a bit better for you guys and for you guys to get the best out of it. Do you know what I'm saying?
I see. I'm looking at it a little bit differently because if you look at Firmino the other night, he wasn't dropping into the 10, he was dropping into the 6, and that's what was causing the problem. He was so deep the other night. But I think that what you speak about there in terms of the change of system, I don't think they've actually made a change of system. I think this has just evolved on its own. And that's why I think it's so perplexing even for Klopp. Even if you look at Klopp's post-match interviews, I don't think he understands himself even what's going on out there. He's a bit perplexed himself about it. So that would lead me to believe is that the change that you talk about is not a change that we've actually put up on a board and put together. It's just manifested itself one way or another. Because if you look at the link-up play with Trent through into Hendo, into Salah, which bore fruit for us a lot last season, that has totally collapsed and gone. Trent has no link-up play now nearly with Salah whatsoever. It's totally disjointed. And if you even look now, when Trent picks up the ball, rather than going wider into Salah for those overlapping balls and stuff like that, he's now moving more into the middle and getting closed down. And he's not even looking at times for that outside ball. So there's a lot of disjointment there at the moment. I don't think they've changed the system. I think they're still going 4-3-3. I don't think there's been any
they're
change.
absolutely
I think it's
going
just
4-3-3, but
itself.
instead of the lads tucking in more,
Oh, they're
they're
out on the
going a little
sidelines.
more.
They're out on the sidelines.
They've
Look at
got the
Salah.
white in their boots all the time. And if you look at the best game you've had so far this season, it was when Firmino played as the 9 and Nunez wasn't in the team, which brought you back to the old way of playing football. And that was the day you shipped 9 at Bournemouth.
Absolutely, but to me that's just an anomaly, to be honest, because we've had Firmino back in the team again and it hasn't looked anything like that. So, and I mean, we have to take into account it was Bournemouth as well. No disrespect to Bournemouth, but I know we scored 9 and stuff that.
But I agree with that. I think
100%.
Firmino, when he was playing with Mane and Salah, he was the workhorse, and the other two were the show ponies. He was creating all the spaces and stuff like that. I totally agree there. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Del Boy back in, laugh out loud, Dazzler. He says, as usual, I'm not happy. Check out my video I upload this evening. Yeah, we'll check it out later, Del, and everyone else check out Del Boy's Gunner TV's channel. I did check out your analysis of the Arsenal
United game, was it?
Was it the Arsenal United game? Was it? Yes, I think it was the Arsenal United game, or it might have been. Actually, it might have been the game last week, the European game
against Zurich.
Yeah, it might have been. It was either one of those anyway. He put one up, and it was interesting, to say the least. So absolutely check it out. Let's continue on our way. Rangers versus
Noel was a closet United fan that day on the boat back home. Arsenal versus United. Closet United fan.
I certainly wasn't. It'll break me heart to wear this jersey if it happens. Don't talk to me. Rangers versus Napoli, lads. Well, you won't be sending me that one because that one wouldn't go through my forearm even. I'll have to get one of Dazzler's off.
I've got one of Fitchy.
I'm fat Elvis now, so it's all right. You'll fit some of them.
None of those would fit me, Marky. Trust me. Ask Darren, we were away together. Rangers versus Napoli, the other big game in that group. Obviously, it's been switched to the Wednesday. What you thinking on this, Darren? This is could be another tough day at the office for Rangers, isn't it?
Yeah, I expect it to be a really tough night at the office for Rangers. I don't necessarily think Napoli will be as at it as they were at home against Liverpool, and I think Rangers will be better back at Ibrox, but I still think Napoli will have more than enough here, and they'll get a victory. And again, I'd be going Napoli and both to score in this one. Might be a nice little double. Liverpool and Napoli both to win, and both teams to score. I think there's money in that for you.
Interesting, yeah. Mm-hmm. Good show. Let's move on to the next one. Sporting versus Tottenham. Marky, what you thinking on that one?
Yeah, I think Sporting obviously started off well, 3-0 win at Frankfurt, and they got a good 4-0 win there the weekend. I was watching bits of it. Trincao played really well, scored 2 goals. But I just think Spurs will have enough to beat them. Obviously, with the break in the weekend, I think the English team have a slight advantage coming in with it more rested as well,
Fresh legs.
Yeah, exactly. I think that will play to Spurs' strength in this one, and I can see them winning 3-1. I'm going 3-1 Spurs.
3-1 Spurs, even with Sporting playing as well as they are. Interesting.
They are. I just think Spurs will have too much for them, if I'm being honest with you. Some of the teams Luton have come up against, obviously Frankfurt weren't great. And that Portuguese league is not as strong as everyone says.
Interesting. Interesting you talk about them having a rest. I don't know if you got Klopp's interview today, his pre-match interview. Your man turned around and asked him. He says, "How do you feel about not having a game at the weekend? Do you think it broke your rhythm?" And Klopp turned around to him and said, "If you're saying our rhythm against Napoli, it's the last thing I want to reproduce," or something like that. And the journalist just went quiet, like he didn't know what to say, but it was a great answer. Especially, Marky, you talk about Trincao there. Darren, isn't it mad over the last year when we look back on the shows, all the players that we spoke about are coming to the forefront now and playing really, really, really well. It's crazy. Yep. Crazy when these
our boy Richarlison.
Yeah, you mean your boy Richarlison?
You love him. You love him.
He's not my boy Richarlison.
Dazzler, what do you reckon if Spurs finish above Liverpool? He'll have to wear Richarlison jersey at the end of the season.
Here, don't be chiming in here now after 6 games and we're like bottom feeders knocked out on the canvas, and you want to throw more bets at me.
The only issue I'd find with that, Marky, is where the fuck would you get a Spurs jersey? It's not like there's fans walking around the roads and all with them on. Do you know what I'm saying?
Very true. We'll get a tablecloth and just draw Spurs crest on it.
Graham would have one, but again, I think sizing might be an issue.
It might be, yeah.
just a tad. Just a tad. Obviously, the other game in that group, Marseille versus Eintracht Frankfurt. Interesting. Marseille seem to be in a good run of form. Did they score a bunch of goals at the weekend? Who got them? Someone, can't remember.
Suarez?
No, I don't think it was him, but someone familiar to me in the Premier League, I think it was. Okay. Hang on now and I have a look.
They actually put up a reasonable effort in the first game against Spurs. Kept them quiet, and they're quite good at the back, and kept things nice and tight and stuff like that. It was only in the dying embers of the game the Spurs were able to kind of get on top and grab a goal and stuff like that. I'd really fancy Marseille at home against Frankfurt, I have to say, after the thumping Frankfurt took last week, you know.
Got it there. Alexis Sanchez, who has scored 4 goals already for them this season. Alexis
Sanchez and Suarez up front, huh?
See, he's not the piano player, no?
Oh, that's him. Yeah.
That's him. Yeah.
It's like a graveyard for decent strikers, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Marseille in this one might have a little bit too much for Eintracht.
I think so.
I think the Sporting versus Tottenham might be a draw. That's what I'm thinking.
I think Sporting could get something out of it. Well, I don't think Spurs have been playing super. I think they've been really Antonio Conte-like and just getting over the line. But I don't think they've been spectacular at all. And I think maybe Sporting might be able to get something out of this.
I think Song is due a good game, and I think it's going to come against Sporting for some reason. You just have it in the back of my head. I think he'll come good against them.
I'm not pulling an Ivan Toney one on this one tonight for tomorrow night or Wednesday or whatever it is. No chance. Chelsea's group. Chelsea off to a poor start, bottom of the group. They host Salzburg.
Come on, Salzburg.
Darren, what you thinking on this? Obviously, Graham Potter's first game at home in Europe in the Champions League. What you thinking?
I expect this to be a massive, massive change from how we've seen Chelsea play of recent times. I think they'll go into the game, and I think their priority as a Chelsea side from now on will be to keep clean sheets. That typically was Potter's, modus operandi in his games at Brighton. It was keep a clean sheet, set a base from there, and then go and play our football higher up the pitch in the hope to try and pick teams off. I think Chelsea should look a whole lot better at the back. You'll obviously have the boy Wesley Fofana and Koulibaly involved, maybe even Thiago Silva. Like, that's a solid back three. If you stick Reece James and Cucurella, it's very, very good there. A couple in the midfields and something up front. I think Chelsea will win this 1 or 2-0. I think they'll score 1 or 2, and I think they'll keep it. They'll keep the clean sheet at the back, which is all I think Potter's really worried about right now.
Well, Mark, would you expect them to make a few changes up front?
I would. But I will say, Daz, I think Salzburg, they got another good 3-0 win over the weekend. Obviously, Nova scored again. They will be an attacking threat for Chelsea. But I can see them maybe scoring 1. I do agree with you, the way Potter sets up and all. And did you see the interview with him on Sky Sports News today, He's just a breath of fresh air for the Premier League, isn't he? Like since he came from Sweden that time. But I think Chelsea will have enough in the locker. And again, like I said, they no game the weekend. That's gonna Potter has had more time to spend with the team on the training ground. So
it couldn't have gone any better for Chelsea since
100%.
Potter came in. With obviously what happened at the weekend and stuff like that. I think it was a perfect scenario for Chelsea where Potter was able to get a couple of extra days with the lads before his first game. He's now even able to go out and try that system that he wants to play in Europe, see how it works, and then bring it back to the Premier League the weekend, which is a huge plus for them.
Yeah, similar to ourselves, another team that didn't necessarily want to hang on to their current rhythm. David, back in the comments, Chelsea get a new manager, you just know they'll go and win it now.
Boy, I hope not.
Surprise, Silla.
I'll make a sweeping statement. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd prefer to see Liverpool win the Champions League than Chelsea.
What's sweeping about that? We're best pals, aren't we?
Well, as a Manchester United fan, that just shouldn't be the case. But that's how I feel about that club.
Dropping in the comments now, give me a stick.
Absolute socks, I'd say. AC Milan versus Dynamo Zagreb. Zagreb coming into the game on the back of a real good win against Chelsea, obviously, last week.
Really good
AC
win.
Milan kind of stuttering a little bit, got a draw last week.
But they had a good win the weekend against Sampdoria there, so they were down to 10 men for 40-odd minutes, weren't they?
Yeah, and I seen today as well, a report came out today that Divock Origi has been called the worst signing in the history of AC Milan or something like that. They're giving him dogs abuse at the moment, even though he's only come on as a bit part player in most of the games. David's back in. Shut up, Dazzler. Shut up. That's not very nice now, is it? That's not very nice at all.
Imagine that's the guy I'm going to the Manchester Derby with. Jesus Christ, huh? That's terrible.
Which is your next league game, as far as I know, isn't it?
No. January 16th.
Oh, you're going to home one, not the away one, yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely wouldn't be going to the empty house.
I'd get a ticket handy enough, though.
Shit in my hands and clap, thanks.
One of the games coming up this week that should be an interesting one. I mean, obviously, Bayern and Barcelona are going to face each other, which is a key tie in the this week's fixtures as well. But Man City versus Dortmund. Dazzler, what do you think on this one? This is going to be a good match, isn't it?
It should be a decent game. Like, I mean, Dortmund are again looking like a decent side, but I just don't think you could look past City at the minute. Just with the way, I think again, for someone like City, the break came at a nice time. Give the boy Haaland a little rest and let him put a bit of energy back in the legs and stuff like that, because we know he's a little bit injury prone and he takes a knock here and there. So I think it was ideal for City as well, because they can keep him in that vein of form, as in they haven't had to take him out of the side, they haven't rested him. Everyone's had the week off. He'll train. He'll be in good spirits. And I just think at the moment, like, he looks frightening. He really does.
Unreal.
Like the thoughts. You're talking earlier on about Bayern and Barcelona, and Lewandowski is the only footballer right now, or the only striker right now that looks anything like the boy Haaland. The two of them are as the two best strikers in world football at the minute, Lewandowski and Haaland. They are just unbelievable. Not a game goes by where you don't firmly believe they're going to pick up a couple of goals,
And did you see Dortmund the weekend, Dazzler, beaten 3-0 by Leipzig, and they didn't even have a shot on target in the whole 90 minutes? Disgraceful. That's
shocking.
Resting the players for the City game, were they?
No, they did it for Bellingham.
I know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The other one rounding up that group then is Copenhagen versus Sevilla. Darren, you spoke about Sevilla last week, and you were talking about kind of the drop off. They've been a little bit aged and stuff like that, and some of their key players
they've lost an awful lot of players.
Yeah.
I mean, their whole basis as a football team under Julian Lopetegui was, again, let's keep things very, very tight. It was a pragmatic sort of a system. They lost Diego Carlos and Jules Koundé. They're two starting centre backs. The boy Augustinsson is now sitting on the bench at Aston Villa. The boy Lucas Ocampos, I think he headed off to Ajax, I think. there's a lot of changes there at Sevilla, and they're just not the side they were last year. I think the two centre backs that have left a gaping hole at the back, and yeah, a lot of teams are taking advantage of that.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one for them in the Champions League this year.
Mm-hmm.
Right, let's get on to the Europa. That rounds out our Premier League teams in the Champions
League. Yeah.
The Europa, if you look at it, we can skip through Arsenal because we know the game has been postponed. So the next one up for us is Shamrock Rovers. Group Shamrock Rovers are away to Ghent. Playing well at the moment, Shamrock Rovers. I think we mentioned last week they got a good draw. Obviously,
they were
away.
actually. I watched the highlights of that Euro Gardens game, and Rovers were very unlucky not to win the game.
Yeah,
very unlucky. The boy Gaffney had a great chance at the end. He was one on one with the keeper.
Banging in goals this season. Banging in goals.
I don't think he kind of, made his mind up at what he was trying to do. Like the option was either, play it across the box, but there wasn't really anyone there to play it to, or have an attempt, and he kind of did something in between and poked it towards the keeper, and it was funny, but he almost got a goal out of it. But he's been playing very, very well, the lad. He really has,
When you have Jack Byrne there, Richie Towell and all supplying the balls into you, you're going to get lots of goals. He's one of those that, he's around the box. The ball might hit off him and he'll come up with a chance then. But even from the back, Alan Manus, at his age, he's still pulling off some saves. Like, he's been a fantastic keeper for them over the years. Still doing it. They're going to lose a few, and they already have, and they're going to lose a few more players now in January to kind of Championship and League One teams as well for absolutely nothing, which is a disgrace for the League One teams.
Ferrugia, is it? Have you seen this kid?
Yeah.
My God, what a footballer this kid. This kid's a serious baller, and he'll go for next to nothing.
Yeah.
And head towards probably League One or the Championship.
Yeah, you get. I think Rotherham were looking for him, and there was talk of about you're looking at 55,000-60,000. Nothing.
Yeah. Sometimes that doesn't make sense. Sure, it doesn't. Also, they're coming in on the back of a really good win yesterday, where they beat Finn Harps 5-1 as well. Yeah. Very, very impressive, as well. And a result against Ghent out there, would put them in a kind of a nice position as well. Like, if they could get something out there.
It would. And I will just say one other thing. It's great to see the home games we played in Tala. Obviously, UEFA have done their checks and everything and approved it. Because if the games have been in the Aviva, I don't think there's the same atmosphere. I don't think Rovers play the same way. So it's a big plus that they can play in Tala Stadium for the Europa League or the Europa.
Unless you're an away fan and you have to get through Tala.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about, Mark. When you go to the Aviva, you get that pocket down to the left-hand side of the goal. And that kind of feels like it's nearly most of Tala Stadium is in that pocket down there. Yeah. And everything else is kind of casual where, you'd even say maybe they're not even Rovers fans. They're just League of Ireland fans who are going along. It's a kind of a night out and stuff like that. And not
only that as well, like the pitch in the Aviva is a lot bigger than Tala Stadium. The pitch that's in Tala Stadium suits the style of play that Stephen Bradley has been playing as well. So that comes into it as well. That's a big factor.
And especially for teams like this, especially like the League of Ireland teams trying to compete in Europe, atmosphere is everything. If you can be on top of the action and stuff like that, it can make a huge difference and stuff
We've seen it. Remember Dundalk were in it and they had to play their home games up here and stuff like that, and it just wasn't the same for them. And now, listen, it generated a lot of money for them, which is great, which I don't know where they've invested it. If you've seen the state of their pitch, they still have that poxy astro down there, but that's another story. It's poxy.
And no professional football team should be playing on astro.
Sure, the Shells player there 2 weeks ago done his knee in, and it was piss and rain, and no one around him. He went over on it, and he's out for a good few months now. Duffer wasn't happy in his interview after.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. Next group up is West Ham's, Darren. West Ham are away to Silborg, coming in on the back of a good win against Steaua Bucharest last week. But again, what we've seen with West Ham is they kind of bring us on this European journey, and then they kind of fall away a little bit. What you thinking on this one?
Yeah, it's tough for teams like West Ham. We've talked about it with the addition of all the games and the travel and stuff like that. I think Moyes has done his best to try and pad the squad out a little bit, where he's got a few more options. Obviously, the boy Scamacca up front and stuff. Him and Antonio will swap, and Then you've got, the likes of Ben Rama, and you've got Bowen and Lanzini, Fornals, and, they've bought the boy Paqueta in and stuff like that, along with Declan Rice and Soucek. So he's really, really tried to puff that squad out to give them an opportunity to go deep maybe into a competition like this and still maintain their run in the Premier League and keep them competitive and stuff like that. If West Ham could win a trophy like this, it will be huge for them. And it's not completely against the odds that they could do it. In fairness to them, they did a good spin last year. They're a really well-versed team. I think when they get out of the group stage, I don't think any team will want to play over West Ham. Will want to play against West Ham over two legs. I think they're very, very tough to play against. They work so well. David Moyes has them very well drilled and stuff like that. They've got lots of good footballers and stuff like that. Plus, you're going to that Olympic Stadium, and the West Ham fans are going to get in your back. They're going to hassle it and stuff like that. Very, very partisan crowd there, So yeah, I'd like to see West Ham go well in this, if I'm honest. I have a little.
They gained a lot of experience from last year's run as well, so I'm sure they have an appetite for it this season as well.
Absolutely, 100%.
And then we come to United's one. United away to the mighty Sheriff.
I'm going down to Fairview to watch it actually on Thursday night. Yeah.
It's probably on the Astro, Mark.
Another shit Astro.
Yeah, it actually is. Yeah, they just throw that black stuff on it.
I stopped playing football after I played on that pitch. The pitch was shared between Eastwall, Bessborough, and Sheriff. One would play on the Friday night and one would play on the Saturday night. Now, we were in the same league, so we were both in Premier A, and I played on it for Eastwall, and we were training Tuesday, training Thursday, and then if you had a home game, you were 3 times on it in a week. And I lasted about 7 months on it, and I had to hold my hands up and go, "That's the end of me, lads. Take it easy. Good luck." That's how bad it was for a goalkeeper. It was just horrific. Horrific.
They just keep putting that black stuff on it. They don't try to improve it.
Do nothing. Yeah. No. They just keep topping it up.
That grid is horrific.
It's rubber. It's that black rubbery pieces of shit.
Taking it out of your arse and everything after games.
Yeah, absolutely. Marky, what's thinking on this Sheriff versus United?
Yeah, another tough game. Obviously, I didn't get to watch the match on Thursday night because I was in work. I just caught the so-called highlights, which weren't much. For me, it wasn't a penalty. Daz, I think I was watching a bit of the clip, and you said the same thing. Listen, the law that should have been applied to that was one that was applied last year. Daz, I don't know if you remember. Remember, we got knocked out by Middlesbrough, and they're equalising goal.
That's right. The boy Crooks, Matt Crooks.
Crooks got the goal at the back post, but your man set it up. It hit
Duncan Watmore.
Yes, that's it. I could see him with the kind of strawberry blonde hair.
They're both two ex-United players.
Yeah. It hits off him and it bounces up off his arm then, but it hits his body first. And he chips it over. Obviously, Crooks comes in at the back post. But Anthony Taylor was the referee in that game, and he applied the law which states, if it hits off another part of your body before going your arm, you're not in control. That's what should have applied there. It was a desperate decision by the referee, in my opinion. I felt we might have been unlucky not to get a penalty as well with the Ronaldo drag. It's one of those. It's 50-50, isn't it? And he's also out for the goal. But listen, it's a big game for us. A tough away game. They have a little stadium there. The fans aren't close on the pitch, but we need a win. We need to win.
It'll be hostile.
Big time.
These guys will be really up for it. This is obviously the game that they were able to do Madrid in as well. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was that game at home. It'll be very, very tough. I don't imagine we'll see United put in as bad a performance as they did at home last week, because I don't believe he'll play Ronaldo. And I think, again, we've spoken about it in the past, I think when you play Ronaldo, you're playing with 10 men at this stage. He brings so little to the table from a point of view of a pressing and a work rate and stuff like that. And, we've looked for the last number of weeks at United where everybody was putting a shift in and guys were all pulling in the same direction. And it just stopped last Thursday night. Yeah. Now, listen, there was 6 changes or whatever there was. So there was more than just Ronaldo. But I think for me, he was the one that stood out as a glaringly obvious mistake. And I just think it has to be redressed. Hopefully, Martial is a little bit closer to being ready for this week, because I just think, and I'd prefer to even see the boy McNeil get the spin for the full game, who came on last week, because at least his work rate will there, he'll press, he's a goal scorer that if opportunities fall, you don't have to worry about that he doesn't know where the net is and stuff like that. I just think Ronaldo, for me, has to just take a back seat. He really, really does.
Daz, I don't know if you agree. I was talking about this earlier on to me dad. Like, you're looking at it going, right, the games postponed against Leeds. We're going into an international break there. Just start your strongest 11, like even possibly the one that started against Arsenal. Say you went 2-0 up, whatever. Start bringing on the young lads, give them more European experience. But there's no reason why we shouldn't start the strongest first 11, because there's no games coming up.
There's plenty of lads that can come off the bench. The boy Garnacho, the boy McNeil, the boy Iqbal. There's lots of lads that can. Fredrickson, he was on the bench the last night as well. There's loads of kids that can come off the bench and do a job at that kind of a level for us. But as you said, get the result in the bag first. And then just start overlooking the Ronaldos and the Harry Maguires, because both of them, I thought, were poor last week. I thought when you play as a football team and we struggled offensively. Now, Erik ten Hag looked at why we were struggling offensively, and one of the first changes he made was in the back four, because the ball wasn't coming out quick enough and guys were doddering on the ball too long and stuff like that. Maguire was taking 6 touches before he was able to get it out of his feet and pass it to somebody. And obviously with the addition of Martinez in the second half, things flowed much, much better. That shows you straight away how poor the lad is, you know what I mean? And how much he's been bluffing for the last couple of years at United.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that kind of rounds up. What are you expecting? You're expecting a United win, yeah, I assume. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a tough game. Like I said, it will be a tough game, but
you'll be earning it on Thursday, that's for sure. I wanted to take a moment. Obviously, we know the Queen passed away there the other day, and I had conversations with Darren outside of the podcast, and we were all kind of disappointed that we had no football, but we kind of understood kind of the decision that was made. And then in hindsight, when you look at the other sports that went ahead, and you're asking yourself kind of, why did football not go ahead when all the other sports more or less went ahead? And on reflection, Darren also mentioned to me that we can't kind of relate to this. This is something we understand, but it's very hard to relate to in terms of the outpouring in the UK and stuff like that. It's historical and it's huge for them, and kind of it may be the only change that we see in our lifetime. We may see one other, but it might be the only change we see in our lifetime. So I wanted to put a kind of a montage together of how much Darren mentioned me the other day, and what kind of rang home with me. He mentioned that she's someone's grandmother and someone's mother as well, and that gets lost in the whole Queen thing, which is very important to take note of as well. But I wanted to put a little montage together of some of the sporting things she's been involved in and stuff like that, which I thought would be just a nice slide to put up, to show how much she loved sport. And Darren, some of them I put up for you there. Obviously, you can see the one with Martin Johnson, isn't it? And Clive Woodward with the Rugby World Cup, I think it is it? And she's there. And the top one, I think, is John Eales, if I'm right.
That's John Eales, yeah, that's right.
For us, is it Australia?
That's Australia, they won.
Australia,
it's Australia, yeah.
Yeah, and then the one below it is her presenting medals at the Commonwealth Games. The one below that is obviously the Olympic torch. Obviously one of the most iconic pictures in English football, presenting the World Cup to Bobby. And her love as well, obviously, of horse racing, which was huge, both in a racing and in a breeding capacity. We all know Ascot and all that kind of stuff and how big it is to them and stuff like that. And then obviously too, I put in there for you, Darren, the tennis. The girl in the top right corner, I think it's a teen or something or other, but she was the first black ladies women champion in Wimbledon. Can't remember her surname, but she presented the trophy to her and stuff like that. The other chap you see presenting the trophy there, I can't, his name doesn't come to me. I'm trying to remember them all. But it was just I just clipped some of these images here, just to get your thoughts and stuff like that. I mean, there was a lot of back and forth.
I think she's been a huge advocate for sport, hasn't she? And if you look at, obviously, year on year, when the Queen's birthday honours list comes out and stuff like that, there's an awful lot of sports stars and stuff like that, and athletes that get presented with, you know, knighthoods or MBEs or OBEs or stuff like that because of their services to sport. But I think, you know, for her to acknowledge it, I think is lovely as well, you know, because it plays such a big part in our lives now. You know, about sport it's such a leveler, you know, it really is in all aspects, you know. And even when, you know, there's conflicts in areas and there's conflicts about this or that and another, you know, sport can be a great healer at times as well, you know. So it's important to remember that.
And she's passed it down to the grandkids as well. You look at like Prince William's big Villa fan. He's a president of the
Big
FA.
Villa fan, that's right.
Zara Tyndall's
he's in Villa Park quite a lot, isn't he?
Yeah. And Zara Tyndall won the silver medal at the Olympics. If the lads playing the polo, like my nana was a massive fan of the Queen. She passed away there a few years ago. She used to have her hair like the Queen and stuff. So it always reminds me of her. Me and Nicole have been watching. My daughter have been watching Sky News. You know, most days, because it is history. You know, you look at her. The first Prime Minister that she worked under was Winston Churchill. It's madness, like, you know, how long she and the amount of even the presidents. You know, everything from JFK to Trump to
there was so many facts that when you heard them you went, geez, you know, she met with 13 of the last 14 American presidents, and you were like, wow, Jesus, that's huge.
And
even
David there made the point in the comments that she had witnessed every single World Cup to date. Which is mad to think that and stuff like that. But yeah, I think when I reflected on it as well, obviously my thoughts went to what I was doing and where I was when Diana passed away as well, and also JFK, some of these iconic things. So it got me reflecting on them as well a little bit and stuff like that, you know.
It was mad. Myself and my dad were in Manchester the weekend. Princess Diana died. Man United just played Coventry, and we woke up and we were getting dressed, ready to go down for breakfast. And my dad turned on to the telly, and BBC News was on. It was breaking news that happened. We went down for breakfast, and it was the most sombering experience of my life. It was like no one spoke a word in the breakfast room. It was like you were at a wake, you know. That's all way. It was the weirdest feeling ever. I'll never forget it. Like, never.
Well, she was so loved as well, wasn't she? Because she was kind of she was such a beautiful lady, and she cared so much for people. But she was kind of a little upstart as well when it came to the royals. So it was a little bit different and stuff like that.
Another thing as well, I think the last thing she would have seen in the footballing thing was the women win the European Championship. The first championship since 1966, and it was the ladies that done it. So that would have been one of the last things that she witnessed, which is a nice
and
touch, you know?
Darren, one for you, an interesting one. I don't know if you've seen Laura Davis talking about her the other day on the Golf Channel, and Laura Davis, I think she went and met the Queen after she had won. I think it was the US Open or something like that. And the Queen congratulated her on winning the US Open. I don't know, maybe she was getting an OBE or something at the time or something. But the Queen turned around to her and asked her where was she playing next week, and she was playing a women's competition in Biarritz in France. And the Queen whispered to her, make sure you go and win. And she said she went out and she actually won the tournament in France. And she reflected on it and she said, I wonder did the Queen tune into the tournament to see if I went and won. So I thought that was a nice kind of touching story as well from a golfing point of view and stuff like that.
There seemed to be an awful lot of really, really, nice stories about her. She just seemed like a very, very warm sort of a lady. And even like I watched obviously the Jubilee and stuff this year, and I don't know whether you guys seen the skit she did with Paddington.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah,
you know,
very good.
like she's the Queen, she's the leader of the royal family, the monarchy, the country, the whole shooting match, and she's sitting there with Paddington Bear having the crack. It's a great leveler for people, you know, and it brings everything down a level.
Did you see that story, Dazza, about the James Bond one? Your man had written the skit for the James Bond, and his assistant had gone to Buckingham Palace to look at outfits for it because they were going to have an actress playing the Queen, and she got there and she's looking at all these outfits and where to film, and the Queen's assistant turned around and says, "Why are you doing all this?" And she said, "It's for the actor." And she said, "No, the Queen's going to do it herself." And they were all just in shock going, "What?" And then they had nothing written for her, and on the morning of the shoot, the assistant came over and was like, the Queen would like to say a line. So they had to write something there and then just before they started filming for her. Like, so fair play to her. Like,
yeah, I was listening to Darren. I was listening to David Jason the other day. He was being interviewed with a couple of people, and he was saying the one thing that's lost on people as well. He said she had a great sense of humor. She had a really, really good sense of humor when you were around her and stuff like that. And he said that's lost on people as well because everything is so regal and stuff like that, and everything is so royalty and all.
I heard a cracking story of she was up in Balmoral, obviously, and she was out for a walk with the dogs and with one of the security lads, and they stumbled across two Yanks. And the Yank was like, "Oh, hello, ma'am, how are you?" Vladdy Bland. There was a bit of back and forth. And, are you here long? And she says, "Oh, I have a holiday home here. I live in London, Never mentioned a word about herself being the Queen. So anyway, in the end, didn't the American lad want a picture with the Queen's, our security basically, who was just a normal, and he asked the Queen to take the photo. So the Queen took the photo, and then there was another photo then taken, whatever. But your man, the Yank, still never had an idea. So she whispered to her security, she says, "I can't wait." He goes home and shows them photographs to someone, and someone twigs that it's me, Just thought, that's comedy gold, like,
brilliant. Wicked sense of humor, like.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. No, very good, yeah. And I just thought I'd put the slide together because I rang Darren when you spoke to me at the weekend. It kind of hit me a little bit and stuff like that. So I thought it'd be a good one to put together. On the back of that, we know that we've no Premier League action this weekend. I still can't understand why tonight's game didn't go ahead. I think it was Forest and Leeds or something like that. That probably could have went ahead, But however, and I suppose the flip side of this, where you have one side that understands exactly why the football was called off, you have the other side of that, the impact on people and small business and stuff like that, and those traders and all those kind of people who get hit hard in the pocket, especially coming out of all this COVID stuff and trying to catch up and trying to get their businesses back together and stuff like that. And I would say the fans as well. A lot of fans. I think I seen a video the other day. There was an Arsenal fan at the Emirates. And I think he had travelled over from Asia or something like that. He paid nearly $3,000 or something to go to the match. And I'm sure he was devastated that the match was off and stuff like that. So there's that stories as well. And look, we sympathise with those people as well. And, everything in hindsight and, that kind of thing. But this is what's been confirmed by the Premier League today. This is what we have to look forward to next weekend. On Friday night, we have a double header. Sky Sports are going to be showing Aston Villa versus Southampton. And the other 8 o'clock game is Forest versus Fulham. Which I probably might have preferred to be on Sky Sports, being honest. But that's just my bias towards Forest this year. Then Saturday, we have Wolves versus Man City is the lunchtime kickoff on BT. The 3 o'clock is Newcastle versus Bournemouth. The 5:30 is Spurs versus Leicester on Sky Sports. And then Brighton versus Crystal Palace is postponed. And then we go into Sunday. The 12 o'clock game is Brentford versus Arsenal on Sky Sports. And then we have the 2:15 game, Everton versus West Ham. And we know Chelsea versus Liverpool postponed and Man United versus Leeds postponed. Marky, you were asking me the question earlier about this. What they do, and from what I've read into it, they categorise games, I think, in terms of risk and stuff.
Security risk.
Yeah. And what they do is, and those games
it's a green, orange, or a red.
It's actually letters. It's A, B, C, or D, or something like that. They were saying today, and they were saying that both those games are categorised as A.
I understand Chelsea, Liverpool, and United, Leeds, but I don't understand with Brighton Palace. If the Spurs game is going to be played in London, and then the Brentford and Arsenal game are going to be played in London,
the Brighton and Palace are actually big rivals, and that's a local derby there. So to Brighton, their biggest kind of opponents are Palace and vice versa the other way. I didn't realise it myself till.
That's mad. I didn't know that.
It's about it. It was only when Brighton came into the league a couple of years ago I heard about it, But that's. I think they're linked by a particular motorway, or there's something there, and it's the battle of like the A46 or whatever it's called, and it's the two ends of the road type thing.
Didn't realise
Which, Marky, this is obviously something when they're categorising these matches.
they
This
have
is
to
the kind
take
of
into
parameters
account.
they take into account. Yeah.
Yeah.
So although it disappoints us because we were looking, especially to the two matches down the bottom would have been excellent at the weekend and stuff like that. But however, this is your lineup for the Premier League this weekend. The only thing I would say, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, I don't necessarily have a thought on it, but in thinking about it, I was thinking, why did they call off the games this weekend and play them next weekend when the funeral is on the Monday? Why didn't they play the games this weekend and do the mark of respect and the black armbands and everything else they have to do, and then next weekend call off the games because that's the eve of the funeral? Which
apparently, and again, this is hearsay, so to speak. Apparently, because they cancelled the games last weekend, there won't now be the likes of a minute's silence next week or this weekend coming. And what they were trying to do was to get away from the minute silence because they felt that there could be opposition to the minute silence from some of the fans, and football would have their name kind of dragged through the mud a little bit,
Yeah, I read some of that, all right.
So they cancel the games knowing that next weekend they won't need to cancel them. They'll run a certain amount of them through, obviously, other than the high security ones. And there probably won't be a minute silence at this, or they might even go for the minute applause, which can be disguised a little bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, which is probably what they could have done this weekend as well. You know what I mean?
I'd say the issue was the timing of it.
Yeah,
and happening on the eve. I think, time constraints and stuff like that. Yeah. It was probably easier for them to pull the plug and then make adaptations to the following weeks rather than
because I suppose what got people up in arms and a bit upset about it was the fact that other sports was going on, so people felt like they had targeted football. You know what I mean? That this was made into a football thing, and it kind of got people's backs up a little bit and stuff like that. Go on, yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say it's going to be interesting for those 6 clubs to see when that fixture is going to be wedged in after. It's probably going to be after the World Cup at this stage.
Plus this weekend.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I saw a couple of football fans who tried to bring the class issue into it, that football was only cancelled because it's a peasants game and that rugby was allowed to go ahead because it's rugby and stuff like that. And you're just
the cricket as well.
Stop the lights, will you?
And golf.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the golf went ahead. Our boy Shane picked up the win after 54 holes.
I see the picture of him today.
Brilliant. And his interview was brilliant as well. It's great that the good guys won. This whole thing with Liv is getting really good, isn't it? It's really heating up, especially with the Ryder Cup as well and stuff like that. I have to say, I don't know how you boys felt about it, and I mentioned it in our WhatsApp group. As much as there's some great teams in the Bundesliga and Serie A and La Liga and Ligue 1 and all that kind of stuff, I was watching some of that stuff over the weekend. It's a hard old watch, lads. It's a hard old watch when you don't have the Premier League. I was flicking between the golf and the matches because I had lost interest.
Your biggest problem is it's not necessarily the level of talent or the quality or the ability. It's the pace of play.
I wasn't even coming from that point of view. It wasn't even like whether the players were good or stuff like that, because like we beat Barcelona and all playing and everything.
Absolutely.
But I just found myself, just as it went on and on and on, just getting uninterested in it and flicking back into the golf and back into the football and all. But it couldn't hold my attention at all, and it just goes to show how huge the Premier League is.
If that even had been two of the lower teams in the league, like let's say that was Forest and Brentford, you'd have been glued to that.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And not only that, Lazar, you probably agree, I'd rather watch the Championship than La Liga. Thank God the Championship's back this week as well. Like that's my first thought. Blackpool have a tough game against Millwall away now. I'm dying for that.
I've mentioned it before. The Championship's the second toughest league in Europe.
Yep,
after
100%.
the Premier League, it's up there.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. Let's move on from it anyway. It is what it is. We know what's been decided and we can't influence it, but we can have an opinion. Let's get on to this, man. Kind of interesting. The change that was made. Released a statement yesterday. His statement is, "This is one of the most difficult statements I have ever had to write, and it is one which I hoped I would not need to do for many years. I don't know. Based on history of this man's career, I wouldn't have thought so. I am devastated that my time at Chelsea has come to an end. This is a club where I felt at home both professionally and personally. The pride and joy I felt at helping the team to win the Champions League and the Club World Cup and also the Super Cup will stay with me forever. It was an interesting statement, Darren. What do you think on many levels? He genuinely sounded quite upset. But some of
I
the
think
stories
he's
that have been coming out, I don't know if you've seen some of the stories today, the Billy Gilmore one and stuff like that, where
yeah.
Billy
There's
Gilmore was on the verge of joining Brighton and he was advised by the Chelsea hierarchy to hold off, that change was on the way and stuff like that. What was your thinking on the statement?
yeah. Listen, I think he's trying to be clever here, isn't he? And he's trying to play the victim card. He really,
Yeah,
really is. Poor me. Look what's happened to me, and blah de blah. And I think the root of this is there seems to be a lot of rumors going around Chelsea that obviously Chelsea weren't happy with the way things were going, but also about his own attitude and about his behaviour and the way he didn't want to maybe look after certain things in the club, like the youth side of things. And then there seems to be a lot of issues around Tuchel, and I suppose Todd Bowley's made a decision here for the club and for the greater good of the club. Now, if you're asking me, I probably have Graham Potter over Thomas Tuchel every day of the week anyway. So you know what
I
I
think
mean?
all three of us would. I think all three of us
I
would, to
really
be
do.
honest.
Like, so so I think this is a great change for Chelsea. And I think Tuchel is trying to be very clever because he knows he needs to protect his name a little bit. I think if word gets out of how bad things were behind the scenes at Chelsea, it could
Yeah.
damage Tuchel going forward and looking for those kind of premium roles in some of the
Yeah.
bigger clubs in Europe.
Yeah, you heard Mark, even Lukaku was moonlighting at wanting to come back and leave Inter when he heard Tuchel was gone and all. There was some crazy stuff coming out. It was mad. I suppose, Mark, when you look at the statement, the one thing that's glaring to me is you get all the palaver and the devastation and the upset and stuff like that, and then you kind of get the CV popping out. But don't forget, we won the Champions League and the World Club Cup and
Yeah,
all this kind of thing. You know what I mean? So he's kind of like, although as Darren says, he's playing the victim card, he's also saying, but don't forget the CV. It ain't too bad. You know
No,
what I mean?
he's
yeah,
covering his own arse.
Yeah. So
Absolutely
it was
covering
kind
his
of
own
like
arse.
both sides of the mouth there, really, in the
But lad,
statement and stuff like that.
don't forget, he's after going off with a tidy sum of money in his back pocket as well.
I
He would have been paid
don't think
off
he's
as
short
well.
a few. I wouldn't say he's
No,
short a
but
few
you know
bob
what I mean.
anyway.
Like
You know what I mean?
he's trying to play the martyr there. I'm not believing any of it. Listen,
Yeah.
I seen Graham Potter's interview there on Sky Sports News with Chelsea TV today. He looks the part. He was in the office with the view over the training pitches and all. He's just, like I said, I think he's one of the best young coaches out there. Eddie Howe is obviously up there as well, like English coaches. And it'd be really interesting to see what he does. Tuchel will find the job handy enough. I wouldn't be feeling sorry for him after reading that statement at all.
Yeah, I do like Darren's point though about some of the stuff that's coming out. It may be like a contentious thing in a future employment.
But listen, no manager really has looked after that youth system at Chelsea. If you've seen the managers and the youths that have been out on loan, they've had the biggest amount of players out on loan in any Premier League team, and they are coming through, but they're just not been handled in the right way.
They have, but I also think part of that is down to the fact that you're not given any sort of time to bed youth in. Because if you take a hit on the results, you're getting shown that. So from a club point of view, you can't have your cake and eat it.
It's the risk and reward, isn't it, Darren? It's the risk and reward, and at Chelsea it's just so trigger happy.
They said with Potter, this is a 3 to 5 year kind of a plan, and this is what we want to do and make the club more sustainable and have this kind of holistic approach and stuff. It's absolutely, the way to do things. The one thing I will say about Tuchel is I never warmed to him. Like, he's not a guy I look at and go...
He's not endearing.
You wouldn't have from his interviews and all.
Yeah, again, like, even as a United fan, like, I'd love to go for a point with Jurgen Klopp. You'd have great crack, Pep Guardiola. I'd love to have a point with him. I was
Sean Dyche for Niall. Sean Dyche.
I was on the fence about Arteta until I seen obviously the documentary, and now I'd happily go for a gargle with that man. I think he's a nice guy. But Tuchel just didn't do it for me. Some guys just don't. Now it could be the fact that he's German, and in general they can be hard to warm to. But Klopp was able to do it, so I don't know.
I'll just say as well, Dazza, my mate Duffer, I've spoken to him about this before, about the youths in Chelsea. Obviously, when Mourinho came into Chelsea the first time round, he set a precedent. He bought all these big names, and none of the younger players were getting through at all. And that seems to be a thing that's happened throughout the years with them. They just buy the big names, where, with us and obviously Liverpool in recent years with the likes of Elliott and stuff like that as well. United have always done it. Chelsea always seem to just buy the big names, and you look at Conor Gallagher, they let him go out on loan and stuff like that. Great time with Palace, and who's that now?
That's David. David's just saying Tuchel isn't perfect, but he's dealt with a lot in the change of ownership. He's also had to deal, I preface that as well, David, he's also had to deal with a lot of personal stuff. His marriage broke up and stuff like that as well at that time as well. So
I didn't realise that now.
Yeah, he did. His relationship fell apart as well, not just the club level, but also in his personal life.
Was that the best 2 hours of his life, was it?
I was going to say, yeah, it probably just meant he was a happier man and stuff like that, and didn't have someone banging on in his ear and rattling through him all the time. But, listen, it's not my own opinion.
Well, my friend Rowan in work says he's happily married. She's happy and he's married.
Yeah. I suppose get your final thoughts on this, I suppose. Graham Potter. Everyone knows how big of fans we are of Graham Potter on this podcast and stuff like that. I'm kind of disappointed. I'm kind of disappointed he's gone to Chelsea.
He didn't get the job I thought he'd get.
Yeah,
he did. That's the only part I'm annoyed about. He didn't get the job I thought he'd get. I called
what
about.
What do you think of Darren Arsenal?
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
When
we started this, I called him going to Arsenal. I thought that's where he'd end up. I thought he was ideal for Arsenal. That kind of because of the kind of football he likes to play, he sets the base out from the back five, obviously, and then he just likes to go and play football, and he presses the work rate and stuff like that. And obviously, I just thought this is tailor-made for Arsenal. But Chelsea, I think it's a super decision from Bowley. I have to be honest with you. It's a clever appointment rather than going to, if that was Roman Abramovich now, right, you'd be looking at Pochettino or Zidane. Yeah, Bowley went, no, I don't want Pochettino or Zidane. I want a guy who's going to come in and revitalise the club. He's going to change the way we do things. He's going to think outside the box, and he's going to give you the chance. That for Chelsea Football Club should be enough for the fans to get behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because they want to develop the manager as well as the team, which is always can be a very good recipe for success.
Lads, do you see McAllister off Brighton being in a Chelsea jersey in January or next summer?
He's a good footballer, the kid. He's a very good footballer, but I still think the first two he comes looking for are the boy Robert Sanchez and Felipe Caicedo.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that might have bypassed people this week, 2 signings with all the stuff that was going on with the Queen and the postponements. But the top man is a man I'm not sorry to see come off the books at Liverpool. He was earning quite a wage for doing nothing, basically.
He left in the summer, though, didn't he?
Yeah, he left and was released in the summer, but I'm just...
Yeah, was gone, so he wasn't... It's not like him going to King, got him off your books. He was already gone, so you were all right.
Yeah.
Sure, he's after being in Turkey for the last bleeding 5 or 6 years, hasn't he?
No, he was back with us. He went to Besiktas for a while, and they wanted a shot of him after 6 months.
Well, sure. He made 2 howlers on his debut. Do you remember that?
Yeah. He had a horrific first 8 weeks, and they wanted to send him back. And then
like Dazza says, he has lovely teeth now after being over there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the man built like Tommy the Tank. Have you seen the size of him?
Yeah,
absolutely. He's a monster. The other guy that joined Wolves, I was hoping we would have got to play Wolves before this guy joined, because
I've never heard of this young lad.
Yeah, you might. He's normally plays without the beard, so you might not recognise him.
Yeah.
Now, Diego Costa,
Astropay, is it?
Has joined Wolves.
I didn't know Costa was Portuguese. That's mad.
Yeah, that's a fair point, actually. Yeah.
I think it's good to see him back in the league, though. He's a character, you miss lads like him and that. Now, obviously, I hate when he plays against us. He's a little
how much do we think he's going to bring, though?
I think what is he now? 33, 34 at this stage? Would he be?
I thought he was a little.
You might add 10 onto that, maybe.
No, I thought he was 35. Well, it's mental to think he's still younger than Ronaldo, considering he looks like Ronaldo's granddad. But again, he'd probably outwork Ronaldo as well, so that's another day.
We might want to get Wolves to double check the birth cert, actually, with all these crazy birth certs going around these days in football. Could be older. Darren, I suppose will he bring some goals? He'll bring goals, won't he? Or will he?
I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't necessarily see this being a huge success, if I'm honest. I can understand it. And I think it's the Bobby Firmino trick, where he's gonna go toe to toe with two centre backs and absolutely pummel them for a game, and all of a sudden the two boys playing wide of them get a goal and an assist each, and all of a sudden Wolves win a game. But I don't necessarily think he'll be the one scoring the goals. You know what I mean? I just think the way he's able to keep people occupied and busy. I think he'll do the Firmino role, if I'm honest.
What's that? Doing nothing literally for 18 months. Jesus, Wolves wouldn't be happy with that now, would they? Just putting that out there.
I just got a text message. I just got a message there. He's actually 33.
There's no way he's 33.
Rowan from the shop is watching at the minute, and he's just texting me saying he's 33.
Not a chance.
That's mad. That is mad.
He's 4 years younger than me.
Are you talking about Carriers here now, or Diego?
No, Diego Costa. Yeah, too right.
Right. Let's round out the show with one that Darren wanted to talk about. Marky, you have 6 players at the moment who are shortly to be out of contract, and United hasn't taken the option of the further year in their contract, let's say. Darren brought this up to me today. It's a real good topic, Darren, actually. Good one to bring up as well.
Thanks,
I suppose we can go down through them 1 to 6.
Off the bat straight away there, Daz, I don't know how you feel, but I won't name them, but there's 3 there I'd keep out of the 6.
You might upset Darren now if you're saying that.
You'll really upset me, Mark. Don't say
if one of them is what you think. Yeah, you could trigger him on one of them, just saying.
Listen, there's 4 of them. There's 4 of them there I'd keep, obviously, but there's 2 of them I'd be more than happy to see the back of now.
Right, Darren, give us your 2 that are gone and see is Marky the same.
Luke Shaw and Ronaldo.
Ronaldo.
I'd get rid of those, but I'd also get Dallo. I think we need another right forward than him. Yeah.
Dallo's possibly been the best United outfield player
this
year.
He has, right? But I think we need a stronger right full. Like, get rid of Wan-Bissaka. I think Dallo, I don't know.
But even if you get rid of Wan-Bissaka, Dallo's 1 or 2, like.
No, that's what I'm saying. Get rid of Wan-Bissaka. Like, Dallo, to me, is great going forward, where Wan-Bissaka is great going back. We need someone that can do both together. That's a boy.
But we know that's a difficult conundrum. Look at our friend.
No, it is. I know, yeah. That's just my one thing. That's why I said the 3, but you know yourself.
Jesus, I didn't think that was going that way, Niall, did you?
I didn't think at all. I thought he was going with the Ireland boy. I think maybe we triggered him to change it up a little bit there, and then he got caught up in knots then. I wouldn't have thought Dallo would have been on your list. I think he's played really well this season.
He has, but like in previous seasons, looking at him, he can be a bit suspect when defending.
Do you know what it is? I've put my finger on it. He's playing really well at the moment because he wants United to do that option for the other year. Then he might go back to old Dallo.
Listen, it's Ten Hag. It's Ten Hag coming in as well. He's really
and he's also been given an opportunity to play as well, I think.
Yeah, no, he's got minutes on their spell, but Wan-Bissaka I thought would have been out the door in the summer. Maybe Williams in there as cover, like.
I think it'll certainly be one of the next changes we make is Wan-Bissaka out and a right back in. I know we're looking at right back options, but the necessary ones weren't out there, like are the ones that they saw as necessity. You know what I mean?
What are you expecting? What kind of business are you expecting in January?
I think January, a lot of times at United is. David, don't be silly, would you? Don't say silly things.
This is going to generate debate now. This is a bit like the Dallo Fred one. Sorry, Dazzler, but the Gea shouldn't be getting extended. I'd extend Rashford, Dallo, and Fred.
Why would you not? How would you not? How would you not give De Gea an extension?
Like, you'd have to go out. You'd have to go out then and drop 70, 80 million on a new keeper, wouldn't you? Even
if let's just say, for instance, David wasn't a fan of his in the system and in the way, Ten Hag likes his keeper to play and stuff like that, right? You still wouldn't offload him. You might make him second choice, but you would absolutely not offload him. Like, that's mental.
I suppose the thinking for De Gea is he's not going to hang around if he was second choice, would he? He'd force a move through, wouldn't he? I can't imagine De Gea wanting to sit there as second choice.
Well, listen,
no, but I mean, if he was, what I'm saying is, as Darren said, even if you brought in a keeper, it wouldn't be De Gea that you unload. You keep him there potentially as your second, but I wouldn't see De Gea sitting on the bench as a second at United. I don't think that. But
it's not like he has. It's not like he has. You know, he's looking to get a game to the national side around. He's about sixth choice there at the moment, isn't he? So you know, he doesn't necessarily need to play an awful lot of games either.
What age is David De Gea now? Out of a matter of interest.
He's about 33 as well, I think.
Oh, is he?
He looks a lot younger.
Yeah, he's about 33. He's there a long time, though.
It's only, Marky, it's only that V-type or haircut, as Darren said to me last week on the ferry, that sets him looking younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's about 33. Let's have a look here.
David's back again. I wouldn't extend him because every time we extend, his replacement doesn't get signed.
I wouldn't shed any tears over Henderson.
David's saying he's 31.
He's 31. He'll be 32 in November.
Yeah.
And the one
which isn't crazy for a keeper.
Absolutely not. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't extend his deal like that.
Look at Gigi.
David, that's mental. That is mental, Dave. What are you doing? Yeah. I wouldn't renew. The only thing I will say is, I don't think you need to go and drop massive money on a goalkeeper. I think there's lots of goalkeepers in and around the Premier League that could more than do the job that Ten Hag wants done. You know, obviously, I would look at the boy Sanchez at Brighton. He's a phenomenal goalkeeper. And Jose Sa, we've spoken about this before. I think Sa would fit into that United side so well. He's good with the ball at his feet. His distribution is unreal. He commands the box much better than De Gea does, and as a shot stopper, he's excellent as well. I think Sa would, I think Sa would be a great addition to the United squad.
Well, I suppose the thing about it from a United point of view as well is if you can bring in a keeper who's coachable, because Ten Hag is very clear in what he wants his keeper to do. So if you're coachable in any way at all, he'll get you there. You know what I mean? So it's but yeah, those two definitely, especially I'm a big fan
of if we don't extend Ronaldo's, do you think we should keep an eye on this young lad that Wolves just signed, Costa?
Well, I think I'd imagine if we don't sign the Ronaldo deal and if maybe he gets even if he's allowed leave in January, which could happen, I think we'll just go straight back in for the boy Gakpo, won't we?
David's on the end of this rod. He's not letting this go. Yes, the hook is embedded. It's true though. As long as De Gea is there, we won't sign a keeper that is willing to play second fiddle until United decide to move him on, or he decides to leave regardless of form.
There's plenty of keepers out there that will sign for Man United to sit on the bench and play second fiddle, or even get a few League Cup games in between that as well. There's plenty of keepers out there that would.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sorry, David. I love you, pal, but I'm not having that at all. And I'm just delighted that Marky went down the Diogo Dalot route, because I was really going to have to fucking use
No, but that you have to listen. You have to admit he is suspect at times, tracking back and stuff like that. You know, he reminds
man. I think he's been so good this season.
Raphael. No, I'm saying in previous he's done well this season only because Ten Hag's come in. But under the
you can only judge him under the manager he's playing in with and the system he's playing in. You know what I mean? And don't forget who he's playing alongside. Like, I mean, for the last couple of years, he's had to play with Victor and Harry Maguire.
Yeah.
You know, and all of a sudden he got Rafael Varane and Lisandro Martinez as a pairing. So there's a pace alongside him. He doesn't have to shit the bed and think, I have to stay here, because you know he can go forward, he can get involved and stuff like that. Yeah. And that's exactly what we said we wanted from a right back.
Yeah, no, 100%. I just think it's a position that we need to kind of look at. If obviously we get rid of Wan-Bissaka, whether it be I can't say it'll be January, it'll be most likely next summer, but it's definitely a position that needs to be looked at.
I think he'll look. I think the next three positions we're looking at is a striker, another midfielder, and a right back.
Interesting.
That's where
Yeah,
I think we'd go. Because I still see us being light and up front. I obviously think the right back thing needs to be sorted. And I think he'd like somebody who could maybe keep the ball ticking a little bit better, a la Frankie de Jong.
Yeah, scored the other day for Barcelona as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
Absolutely, and looked fairly lively in the game as well, as much as I've seen of it.
Being held hostage.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So, lads, that's it. Another show in the bag. Thank you to everyone in the chat, of course, before you go. Most of you in there, I know, have subscribed at this stage, but if you can hit that like button on the way out, we'd really appreciate it. A pleasure, as always, on a Monday evening, sharing the screen with you two guys. Some interesting topics there, not the normal Monday mashup that we put together, but certainly some interesting topics.
You're back on Thursday, lads?
We're back on Thursday for Thursday Tier Talk, and we're going to preview the Premier League, as tough as it is with both our teams not playing, but we give a preview. We will be back with Beat the Bookie. We'll give you our tips and picks for the weekend as well.
We'll have another impromptu watch along in the United game like we did last week. Don't forget.
We'll have another impromptu watch along in the United
game.
I'll
try hop in the comments this time, lads. I'm working late again. I won't get to see you.
It's no excuse, Mark. You could jump on the bus. It's not a problem.
Battery went the other. I couldn't even watch this the other day. The battery had gone on the phone. Couldn't even watch it.
Marky, you need to get one of these new wallets that I've seen. You know, these wallets for your cards and your money, and they now have the power bank built into the wallet.
Well,
really cool.
The lads in work will even tell you want to see the hack on my phone. The state of it, but I have to get a new phone. So
I can recommend the Xiaomi on Amazon. Well worth.
You couldn't get signal anywhere when we were away. You shite, are you?
That's not fair now. That's not fair.
No, but it's true. I'm not asking what's fair.
I switched off me roaming because Gomo are robbers.
That homeless guy had more signal on his phone than
you and everyone else in the building. I was the only person with any bleeding mobile data when we were away. Like 4 of us in the car.
That she was. Yeah.
My phone.
What you want? Aircell that way?
Oh man, I'm telling you. The 3 boys there trying to share bleeding my phone while I'm driving.
You're obviously gonna have to take this back now because I did find that apple green for you in Cardiff or wherever we were, and I found it pretty good as well. In fairness, when we needed it,
I didn't find just a good takeaway though, lads. That's the only thing.
He's not wrong.
It wasn't finding a takeaway. It was finding one that was open that would deliver to us in the hotel before Darren took a bite out of the table or the umbrella. That's what was going on.
I wasn't the hungry one.
I think we were all fairly hungry now.
I was actually bottom of the hungry list. I don't
know. You moved. Did you not move the top when that couple went off and left half that Chinese behind on the table? You got pretty excited now. In fairness,
I only said, lads, she's left a few chicken balls. We don't just nip over and get them because David hadn't eaten. He looked like he was going to chew someone's arm off, and you were just you were.
It sounded more like you were sending the boys over to get them for you, not for them. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
quality.
It's a tough one. Tough one.
Yeah. You definitely have to make a vlog the next time, lads.
Oh, it was the Friday night was like hunger strike and it was terrible, terrible.
And then the carry on in the hotel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
It was just.
Well, anyway, mayhem. If you want to contact the show, it's the uppertierpodcast@gmail.com. Nothing worked in the hotel.
We got just tell them. We got a free breakfast on the Saturday morning. Because someone took a shit in the pool on the Friday and it was closed.
No way.
Pool was closed the whole weekend because someone dropped a log in the pool. And I want to let our viewers know as well, it wasn't a child, it was an adult that did it.
Oh,
so I'm just putting that out there as well because when she told me and Darren at the desk that it was an adult, we both just went, what? Couldn't believe it. We expected some kid had a nappy that leaked.
It was a female.
Yeah. It was a female adult. Make it even.
It was a female adult. Was it?
Yes.
A female adult left a sinker in the pool on the Friday.
That didn't quite sink.
It was all closed Friday and Saturday, and the lifeguard had to fish it out with a net in his boxer shorts.
Yeah.
Oh.
And here's me and Darren up in the bedroom. We got the swimming togs on. We had the flippers.
Had
we
the
had the
armband ready to
snorkels.
go and
The
everything.
armband.
That was just to get into the bath, was it?
I had that big flamingo. I had that big flamingo rubber ring on me, around me, and everything and all. We were ready to go. Darren, we should have actually walked down to a reception like that and go, we don't care. We're jumping in.
Have you never gone toilet in the pool, lads?
Not that kind of toilet, no.
Yeah,
I've occasionally warmed up a few kids when they're in the pool, all right, when we're on holidays. But
yeah,
that's
no,
as
listen,
far as I'm going with
I've
that
had
one.
a piss in the pool before and it was scary. I nearly slipped and fell in.
Stop you, will you? Stop. Listen, if you want to contact the show, it's the upper tier podcast at gmail.com. We will be back Thursday with Thursday Tier Talk. I will be back tomorrow night, as always, as I do, with a match reaction to the Ajax game. Come on, Reds. Don't let me down. Do not let me down. I can't go through another one. Not 1 and 2. Not 2 in 2 weeks. Too much for me. Lads, a pleasure.
As always.
Lads.